The sky over New York City turned dark in an instant. It wasn't the kind of darkness that came with nightfall or storm clouds rolling in. This was different, unnatural. People stopped what they were doing, their eyes drawn upward as dozens of massive ships descended from the heavens. The air vibrated with a low hum, growing louder with each passing second. These ships weren't sleek or shiny like something out of a sci-fi movie. They were huge, blocky, and covered in strange markings that glowed faintly blue. Weapons bristled along their sides, and their sheer size made even the tallest skyscrapers look small. Panic spread quickly among the crowds below. Some people froze in place, staring up at the alien fleet in disbelief. Others ran for cover, shouting warnings to anyone who would listen. Cars screeched to a halt in the streets, horns blared, and chaos erupted everywhere. But not everyone was caught off guard. On the rooftop of a military command center, Lieutenant Daniel Carter stood with his binoculars raised, studying the largest ship in the formation. His jaw tightened as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Commander Lavra Bennett stood beside him, her expression calm despite the pandemonium around them. She had spent years preparing for this moment, ever since astronomers first detected strange signals coming from deep space months earlier. At first, no one knew what to make of it. Were the signals just random noise? Or were they proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe? As more data came in, the answer became clear. Something was heading toward Earth. And it wasn't friendly. All units, prepare for engagement, Lavra said into her earpiece. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, a mix of determination and tension. We don't know their intentions yet, but we're ready if they make a move. Daniel lowered his binoculars and turned to her. Do you think they'll attack right away? He asked. His tone was serious, but there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. He had trained for combat scenarios his entire career, but nothing could have prepared him for this. Lavra shook her head slightly. I don't know, but whatever happens, we stick to the plan. No matter how advanced they are, we've got surprises of our own. Hidden beneath cities all over the world were advanced defense systems developed in secret over decades. Railguns capable of firing projectiles at hypersonic speeds. Experimental plasma cannons designed to cut through steel like paper. AI-controlled drones programmed to swarm and overwhelm larger targets. Humanity had been preparing for an event like this for years, though most people didn't even know it. And now, those preparations might be the only thing standing between survival and annihilation. As the alien ships continued to hover ominously above the city, a sudden transmission crackled across all frequencies. It wasn't a voice anyone recognized. It was deep, guttural, and laced with arrogance. Whoever or whatever was speaking used broken English, its words dripping with disdain. Humans! The voice boomed. You are weak, primitive. Your time has ended. Surrender now, and you will be absorbed into the Empire. Resist, and you will be destroyed. A chill ran down Daniel's spine as he listened. He glanced at Lavra, who stood motionless, her face unreadable. The message repeated itself, echoing through the streets and filling the air with a sense of dread. Then came the ultimatum, 2 hours to surrender unconditionally. If humanity refused, the invasion would begin immediately. 2 hours. That was all the time they had left to decide the fate of the planet. For some, the choice seemed obvious. How could anyone surrender to being so clearly intent on domination? But others weren't so sure. What chance did humanity really have against such overwhelming odds? The ships hanging in the sky looked indestructible, their weapons far beyond anything humans had ever created. Lavra broke the silence first. Get me a secure line to the president, she ordered one of her aides, and alert all regional commanders. We're going to live with Plan Omega. Plan Omega. Daniel had heard the name before, but he'd never been briefed on the details. All he knew was that it was supposed to be humanity's last resort, a desperate gamble to turn the tide in case of an alien invasion. Whatever it involved, it must have been important enough to keep under wraps until now. As Lavra issued orders and coordinated with global forces, Daniel took a moment to think about the situation. He thought about the people running through the streets below, terrified and unsure of what to do. He thought about the soldiers stationed around the world, waiting anxiously for instructions. Most of all, he thought about the invaders hovering above them, watching and waiting. Who were they? Where did they come from? And why had they chosen Earth? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind him. A young technician approached, holding a tablet. "Commander Bennett," the man said nervously, "we've analyzed their signal. Their language, it doesn't match any known dialects. But based on the patterns, we think they're trying to intimidate us." Lava raised an eyebrow. "Intimidation tactics won't work here," she replied coolly. "They underestimated us if they thought we'd roll over without a fight." Daniel nodded in agreement. "Let them try," he muttered under his breath. "We've got more than enough to throw back at them." Back in the streets, panic gave way to determination. Civilians began helping each other find shelter, while police officers directed traffic and kept order as best they could. In parks and plazas, volunteers set up makeshift supply stations, handing out food and water to those in need. Even in the face of impending doom, humanity showed its resilience. Meanwhile, in cities across the globe, armies mobilized. Fighter jets roared into the skies, their pilots ready to engage the enemy. Anti-aircraft batteries positioned themselves strategically, locking onto the alien ships with precision targeting systems. Underground bunkers buzzed with activity as scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to ensure every piece of equipment functioned perfectly. In Tokyo, a team of engineers activated orbital satellites equipped with high-powered lasers. Each satellite was designed to target specific points on the invaders' ships, slicing through their armor with pinpoint accuracy. In Chicago, Sergeant Emily Ross led a squad of soldiers armed with handheld EMP launchers. These devices emitted electromagnetic pulses strong enough to disable enemy technology temporarily, giving human forces a critical advantage in close-quarters combat. As the clock ticked down, the atmosphere grew tense. Every second felt heavier than the last. 2 hours wasn't much time to prepare for an encounter with an unknown enemy, but humanity had no choice but to make the most of it. Finally, the countdown reached 0. The alien ships remained motionless for a moment, as if waiting to see whether humanity would comply with their demands. When no response came, they opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced down from the ships, vaporizing buildings and sending shockwaves rippling through the streets. Explosions rocked the city, throwing debris into the air and sending civilians scrambling for safety. But instead of crumbling under the assault, humanity struck back with precision and ferocity. Hidden beneath the ruins of New York, automated turrets emerged from underground chambers, unleashing a hail of bullets and missiles at the nearest alien craft. In the skies above, fighter jets dodged incoming fire, retaliating with volleys of rockets that slammed into the invaders' shields. Though the shields held for now, cracks began to form under the relentless barrage. On the ground, Daniel watched as a group of soldiers deployed a portable railgun. The weapon charged for a few seconds before firing, sending a projectile streaking upward at incredible speed. The shot hit one of the smaller ships dead on, punching a hole straight through its hull. The vessel spiraled out of control, crashing into a nearby building and exploding in a fiery inferno. "It's working!" someone shouted nearby. "Keep hitting them!" Lavra monitored the battle from her position on the rooftop, issuing commands and adjusting strategies in real time. "Focus fire on their weak points," she yelled into her radio. "Don't let up for a second." Despite the destruction unfolding around them, a sense of hope began to take root. The invaders had expected an easy victory, but humanity wasn't going down without a fight. Every successful hit boosted morale, fueling the determination to push forward. As the battle raged on, Daniel couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Humanity had faced countless challenges throughout history: wars, pandemics, natural disasters, and somehow always managed to persevere. This was no different. Sure, the stakes were higher than ever before, but so was the resolve to win. Still, Lavra remained cautious. She knew better than to celebrate too soon. They underestimated us, she said quietly to Daniel, her eyes fixed on the chaos below. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The battle intensified as the alien ships adjusted their tactics. Their initial assault had been brutal, but humanity's counterattacks caught them off guard. The invaders hadn't expected such fierce resistance, and it showed in their response. Instead of continuing to fire indiscriminately, they began targeting specific locations, military bases, communication hubs, and power plants. It was clear they were trying to cripple Earth's ability to fight back. In Chicago, Sergeant Emily Ross led her squad through the ruins of a collapsed office building. Dust filled the air, making it hard to see, but the team pressed on. They carried handheld EMP launchers, devices designed to disable enemy technology temporarily. Emily's orders were simple: take out as many alien drones as possible before they could regroup. Stay low and move fast, she whispered to her team. We don't have much time. The streets outside were eerily quiet, save for the distant rumble of explosions. Suddenly, a group of small alien craft descended from the sky, their sleek designs glinting in the dim light. The drones hovered, for a moment scanning the area with red beams of light. Emily signaled for her team to hold their positions. When the drones moved closer, she gave the order to fire. The EMP launchers emitted sharp bursts of energy, creating invisible waves. That disrupted the drone's systems. One by one, the machines faltered, their lights flickering before they plummeted to the ground. Emily's team cheered quietly, but there was no time to celebrate. More drones were already approaching, and the larger ships above continued their relentless bombardment. Back in Tokyo, engineers worked feverishly to coordinate the orbital satellites. Each satellite was equipped with a high-powered laser capable of cutting through metal like butter. The challenge was aiming accurately while the alien ships maneuvered unpredictably. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, the lead scientist overseeing the operation, stared intently at his monitors as his team inputted new coordinates. We've got a lock on one of the bigger ships, he announced. Firing now. A beam of concentrated energy shot down from space, slicing cleanly through the hull of an alien vessel. The ship shuddered violently before breaking apart, its pieces scattering across the atmosphere. Cheers erupted in the control room, but Hiroshi remained focused. Don't get cocky, he warned his team. They'll adapt quickly if we give them the chance. He was right. Within minutes, the remaining ships deployed protective barriers around themselves, shielding them from further laser strikes. Hiroshi frowned but didn't lose hope. Humanity still had other weapons at its disposal and plenty of tricks left to play. Meanwhile, in New York, Lieutenant Daniel Carter watched as anti-aircraft batteries unleashed a barrage of missiles toward the invaders. The projectiles streaked upward, intercepting incoming beams of energy and causing massive explosions in the sky. The blasts lit up the night, painting the clouds orange and red. For a moment, it almost looked beautiful, if not for the destruction unfolding below. Commander Lavra Bennett stood beside Daniel, her eyes scanning the battlefield. She issued commands through her earpiece, coordinating efforts between different units. Her voice remained calm, even as the situation grew increasingly chaotic. Keep the pressure on, she instructed. If they think they can overwhelm us, we'll prove them wrong. Daniel nodded, though his mind raced with questions. How long could humanity keep this up? The invaders had superior technology, and sooner or later, they'd figure out how to counterattack effectively. What then? As if reading his thoughts, Lavra turned to him. This is just the beginning, she said firmly. We've got more surprises waiting for them. Trust me, they haven't seen anything yet. Her confidence was reassuring, but Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still to come. Across the Atlantic, in London, civilians joined forces with local authorities to defend the city. Armed with whatever weapons they could find, rifles, makeshift explosives, even Molotov cocktails, they took to the streets to confront ground troops sent by the invaders. The aliens were tall, with elongated limbs and metallic armor that shimmered under the streetlights. They moved with unnatural speed, firing energy weapons that left scorch marks wherever they hit. Despite their intimidating appearance, the invaders weren't invincible. Civilians used guerrilla tactics, striking quickly and retreating before the aliens could retaliate. In one particularly daring move, a group of volunteers lured a squad of aliens into an abandoned subway station, where they triggered a controlled collapse of the tunnels. The trapped aliens were buried alive, their screams echoing through the darkness. News of the victory spread rapidly, boosting morale across the city. People who had been paralyzed by fear found new courage, inspired by the bravery of their neighbors. Even children pitched in, carrying supplies to fighters on the front lines or helping tend to the wounded. In Africa, similar scenes played out. Guerrilla forces used the terrain to their advantage, ambushing ground troops sent to secure resources. Dense jungles, rocky deserts, and sprawling savannas became battlegrounds where humans fought fiercely to protect their land. The invaders struggled to adapt to the unfamiliar environment, their bulky armor and advanced weaponry proving less effective in close-quarters combat. Every corner of the planet contributed to the fight. In Australia, farmers used modified tractors and harvesters to create makeshift barricades, blocking alien vehicles from advancing. In South America, indigenous communities shared ancient knowledge of poisons and traps, turning the rainforests into deadly mazes for the invaders. Even remote islands in the Pacific became strategic points, with locals using fishing boats to patrol waters and prevent alien reinforcements from landing. Despite the global effort, the invaders refused to back down. Their ships continued to hover menacingly above major cities, raining destruction down on anything that moved. But humanity's resilience only seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. In Alaska, Dr. Ryan Matthews worked tirelessly inside a secret facility known as Project Eclipse. The project had been classified for years, hidden from public knowledge to avoid drawing attention. Its purpose was simple yet ambitious: develop a weapon capable of ending the invasion in one decisive blow. The result was the Eclipse Cannon, a device powered by quantum energy that could tear apart matter at the subatomic level. Ryan wiped sweat from his brow as he monitored the cannon's progress. The machine required immense power to operate, and activating it too early could leave Earth vulnerable to retaliation. He needed precise timing and accurate targeting to ensure maximum impact. "This is it," he muttered to himself, typing furiously on his keyboard. "One shot, that's all we get." As he finalized the calculations, he received a message from Commander Bennett. She provided the coordinates of the largest alien ship, the one leading the invasion fleet. Ryan double-checked the numbers, then initiated the final activation sequence. The cannon hummed to life, its core glowing brighter. With each passing second, outside the facility, snow swirled in the freezing wind. Soldiers stood guard, ready to defend the site at all costs. Inside, Ryan felt a mix of excitement and dread. If the cannon worked, it could turn the tide of the battle. If it failed, well, he didn't want to think about that while Ryan prepared. For the decisive strike, Lavra coordinated global efforts to keep the invaders distracted. She knew the Eclipse cannon needed time to charge fully, and every second counted. "All units, maintain pressure on the enemy," she ordered. "Do whatever it takes to buy us more time." Her words echoed across radios and communication channels, reaching soldiers, pilots, and civilians alike. Everyone understood the stakes. This wasn't just about defending their homes. It was about survival. In Europe, fighter jets equipped with adaptive camouflage engaged in dogfights with alien fighters. The camouflage allowed the jets to blend seamlessly into their surroundings, making them nearly invisible to the enemy. Pilots performed daring maneuvers, weaving through debris fields and launching missiles with pinpoint accuracy. Though outnumbered, they managed to hold their own, buying precious minutes for the Eclipse cannon to prepare. Back in New York, Daniel spotted a group of civilians huddled together in the shadow of a crumbling building. Among them was a young girl clutching a stuffed animal tightly to her chest. Her wide eyes reflected both fear and determination. Daniel approached cautiously, offering what little reassurance he could. "It's going to be okay," he told her gently. "We're fighting for you, for everyone." The girl nodded silently, her grip on the toy loosening slightly. Daniel smiled. faintly before returning to his post. He reminded himself why he was here, not just to follow orders, but to protect people like her. To give them a future worth living for. As the hours passed, the tide of the battle began to shift. Humanity's counterattacks grew bolder, pushing the invaders back step by step. Alien ships retreated to higher altitudes, regrouping and reassessing their strategy, but it was too late. The Eclipse cannon was ready. Ryan transmitted the final coordinates to Lavera, who authorized the strike without hesitation. Fire when ready, she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the decision. With a deafening roar, the Eclipse cannon fired. A beam of pure energy surged into the atmosphere, piercing through the alien flagship's defenses in an instant. The explosion that followed was catastrophic, engulfing the ship in flames, and the victory was sweet, but it didn't last long. The skies over New York were clearing, and the streets below buzzed with a mix of relief and disbelief. People hugged each other, cried, and celebrated the impossible triumph. The alien armada had been pushed back, their largest ship destroyed in a single devastating blow from the Eclipse cannon. But Commander Lavera Bennett wasn't celebrating. She stood on the rooftop of the command center, her eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting another attack at any moment. Daniel Carter joined her, his face smudged with dirt and exhaustion. "We did it," he said softly, almost unable to believe it himself. His voice carried a mixture of pride and disbelief, but there was also a hint of unease. Something about the way the invaders had retreated felt off. Lavera nodded without looking at him. "Yeah, we did. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning." Her tone was calm, but there was an edge to it, a warning that the battle might be over. But the war was far from finished. She was right. While most of humanity reveled in the victory, Lavera knew better than to let her guard down. The invaders hadn't fought to their full potential. Their tactics had been sloppy, almost reckless, as if they expected Earth to surrender without much of a fight. They had underestimated humanity and paid dearly for it, but that mistake wouldn't happen again. Next time, they'd come prepared. And next time, humanity might not get so lucky. In Alaska, Dr. Ryan Matthews slumped into a chair, his hands trembling slightly as the adrenaline wore off. The Eclipse cannon had worked perfectly, but the strain of activating it had taken its toll. He stared at the monitors showing the aftermath of the strike. The massive explosion that had wiped out the alien flagship, the smaller ships retreating into deep space, and the debris raining down like fiery meteors. It was a sight that should have filled him with pride, but instead he felt hollow. Ryan's assistant, Karen, entered the room holding a cup of coffee. She handed it to him with a small smile. "You did it," she said. "You saved us." Ryan shook his head slowly. "I bought us time, that's all. If they come back, and they'll know what to expect. We can't rely on surprise next time." Karen frowned but didn't argue. She knew he was right. The Eclipse cannon was a powerful weapon, but it couldn't be fired again anytime soon. Its energy reserves were depleted, and recharging it would take weeks, maybe months. By then, the invaders could return with reinforcements and better defenses. Back in New York, Lavera addressed her team through a secure video conference. Leaders from around the world joined the call, their faces grim despite the recent victory. "Today, we proved that humanity is stronger than anyone thought," Lavera began, her voice steady and commanding. "But this isn't something to celebrate yet. Those ships that escaped, they'll report back to whoever sent them, and when they return, they'll bring everything they've got." A general from Europe spoke up. "What do you suggest, Commander?" "We can't keep relying on experimental weapons like the Eclipse cannon. We need a long-term strategy," Lavera nodded. "Agreed. First, we fortify our defenses. Every city needs to be ready for another attack. Second, we analyze the wreckage of the ships they left behind. There's technology there we can study, adapt, and use against them. Third, we expand Project Eclipse. One cannon isn't enough. If we're going to survive another invasion, we'll need more firepower and fast." The leaders exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement while others looked skeptical. Lavera understood their hesitation. Humanity had just endured one of the most devastating battles in history, and now she was asking them to prepare for an even bigger fight. But there was no other choice. The invaders weren't going to stop until Earth was theirs or until they were stopped permanently. As the meeting continued, Daniel stepped outside for some fresh air. The streets below were still chaotic, but there was a sense of hope among the survivors. People were helping each other rebuild, sharing food and supplies, and offering comfort to those who had lost loved ones. It reminded Daniel of why they had fought so hard. Humanity wasn't perfect, it was messy, flawed, and often divided, but when faced with extinction, it came together in ways that amazed him. He spotted a group of children drawing pictures on the sidewalk with chalk. One of them was sketching the battle, complete with explosions and alien ships. Another was drawing a crude version of the Eclipse cannon, labeling it super weapon. Daniel smiled faintly as he watched them. Even in the midst of destruction, these kids found a way to imagine a better future. His thoughts were interrupted by a loud crash nearby. Turning quickly, he saw a piece of alien debris falling from the sky, landing with a thud in an empty lot. Smoke rose from the impact site, and a crowd began to gather cautiously. Daniel hurried over, pushing through the onlookers to inspect the wreckage. The object was jagged and blackened, partially melted from its descent through the atmosphere. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its surface, pulsing with a soft blue light. Daniel reached out to touch it but hesitated. He didn't know what it was or whether it posed a danger. Instead, he pulled out his radio and called for a science team to investigate. Within minutes, a group of engineers arrived, led by Dr. Emily Ross, the same Emily who had led the squad in Chicago. She knelt beside the debris, examining it closely. "This is fascinating," she muttered, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen before." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Fascinating? It's dangerous." "We don't know what it does." Emily glanced up at him. "Exactly. That's why we need to study it. If we can figure out how their technology works, we can turn it against them." Daniel sighed but didn't argue. He trusted Emily's expertise, even if he didn't fully understand it. As the engineers carefully loaded the debris onto a truck, he noticed something odd. The glowing symbols seemed to flicker in response to their movements, almost as if the object was alive. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Hiroshi Tanaka and his team were analyzing data from the orbital satellites. The lasers had proven effective against the invaders' ships, but Hiroshi knew they needed to improve their targeting systems. The aliens had adapted quickly, deploying shields that blocked subsequent attacks. If they wanted to stay ahead, they'd need to innovate faster than the enemy. "We've got reports of more debris falling across Asia," Hiroshi told his team. "Some of it might contain intact components, weapons, engines, communication devices. I want teams dispatched immediately to recover anything useful." The engineers nodded, already preparing for the mission. Hiroshi turned back to his monitor, studying the footage of the battle. He paused on a frame showing one of the alien ships firing a beam of energy. Zooming in, he noticed something unusual about the weapon's design. It wasn't just a simple laser. It seemed to generate a localized gravitational field, tearing apart matter at the molecular level. "This changes everything," Hiroshi murmured to himself. If they could replicate that kind of technology, humanity's defenses would become nearly unstoppable. But replicating it wouldn't be easy. They'd need access to materials and resources far beyond what Earth currently possessed. Across the globe, similar efforts were underway. In Africa, guerrilla forces scoured the battlefield for any remaining alien equipment. In South America, scientists studied captured drones, dissecting them to understand their propulsion systems. In Australia, engineers reverse-engineered fragments of alien armor, hoping to create protective suits for soldiers. Every discovery brought new possibilities and new challenges. Humanity was learning, adapting, and growing stronger. But so were the invaders. Somewhere out there, in the vastness of space, the surviving ships were regrouping and planning their next move. And when they returned, they wouldn't make the same mistakes twice. Back in New York, Lavrar received an update from intelligence analysts. They had intercepted fragments of communication between the retreating ships. The messages were garbled, and difficult to decipher, but one phrase stood out: "Revenge will be ours." It was a chilling reminder that the war was far from over. Lavra gathered her team for a briefing. "They're planning something big," she said, pacing back and forth. "We don't know when they'll come back, but we need to assume it'll be sooner rather than later. Our priority is to strengthen our defenses and develop new weapons. At the same time, we need to unify the global response. This isn't just one country's fight, it's everyone's." Daniel listened intently, his mind racing. He admired Laura's leadership, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The invaders had superior technology, and even though humanity had managed to hold its own this time, luck had played a part. What if their luck ran out? Later that evening, Daniel found himself wandering through the ruins of the city. Fires still burned in some areas, casting flickering shadows on the walls of collapsed buildings. He passed a group of volunteers handing out blankets and food to survivors. A young boy approached him, holding out a drawing. It was a picture of the Eclipse cannon blasting an alien ship out of the sky. "Thank you," the boy said shyly. Daniel smiled and ruffled the boy's hair. "You're welcome, kid. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Don't give up. No matter what happens, don't stop fighting for a better future." The boy nodded solemnly, clutching the drawing tightly. Daniel watched him run back to his family, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, the invaders' W. The days following the battle were a blur of activity. Humanity had won a crucial victory, but no one dared to relax. The invaders had retreated, but their parting words, "Revenge will be ours," hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud waiting to break. Commander Lavra Bennett knew better than anyone that the next attack could come at any moment. Her mind was a whirlwind of strategies, plans, and contingencies as she worked tirelessly to prepare Earth for what lay ahead. In Alaska, Dr. Ryan Matthews and his team were hard at work analyzing the alien wreckage recovered from the battlefield. The debris was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Its composition defied known physics, and its glowing symbols pulsed faintly, almost as if it were alive. Ryan pored over the data, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Every discovery brought new questions and sometimes answers that only led to more mysteries. "This material, it's not just resistant to heat or pressure," Ryan explained to Karen, his assistant. "It adapts. When we try to cut it, it shifts its structure to resist the blade. It's like it's learning." Karen frowned, her pen hovering over her notebook. "Learning? You mean like artificial intelligence?" Ryan hesitated. "Not exactly. It's more organic than mechanical. If I didn't know better, I'd say this stuff is alive in some way." The implications were staggering. If the invader ships were made of self-adapting materials, humanity would need to rethink its entire approach to combat. Traditional weapons might not be enough against an enemy that could evolve mid-battle. Ryan knew they needed to act fast. He relayed his findings to Lavara, who immediately ordered teams across the globe to prioritize studying the wreckage. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Hiroshi Tanaka's team made a breakthrough. By dissecting a captured alien drone, they discovered a unique energy source powering its systems. The core emitted a steady hum, glowing with an otherworldly light. Hiroshi carefully extracted the device, placing it in a containment unit for further analysis. "If we can replicate this energy source," Hiroshi told his team, "we could power our weapons indefinitely. No more worrying about running out of fuel or ammunition." But replicating alien technology wasn't easy. The energy core seemed to operate on principles beyond human understanding. It didn't rely on combustion, electricity, or nuclear reactions. It tapped into something deeper, something tied to the fabric of space itself. Hiroshi knew they were scratching the surface of possibilities that could change the course of history if they could figure it out in time. Back in New York, Daniel Carter found himself caught between exhaustion and adrenaline. He hadn't slept properly in days, yet he couldn't stop moving. There was too much to do, patrols to organize, survivors to assist, and defenses to reinforce. The city was slowly coming back to life, but scars remained everywhere. Crumbling buildings, burned-out vehicles, and piles of rubble served as constant reminders of the devastation humanity had endured. One evening, as Daniel walked through the streets, he noticed a familiar face. It was the young girl who had given him the drawing of the Eclipse cannon. She was sitting on a pile of rubble, sketching again. This time, her picture showed people working together to rebuild, a soldier helping a civilian, a scientist examining alien debris, and a farmer tending to crops. Daniel smiled despite himself. "You're quite the artist," he said, kneeling. Beside her, she looked up and grinned. "I want to help too." "Not now, but when I grow up," Daniel nodded. "You will. And you'll do amazing things." Her words stayed with him long after he left. They reminded him why he kept going even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, it was fighting for hope, for dreams, for a future where kids like her could grow up without fear. Lavra, meanwhile, convened another global meeting. Leaders from every continent joined via video conference, their faces lined with fatigue but also determination. Lavra outlined her plan: fortify key cities, expand Project Eclipse, and develop new weapons based on alien technology. She emphasized unity above all else. "We've proven we can work together," she said firmly. "Now we need to double down. Every nation has a role to play. Share resources, share knowledge, and above all, stay connected. If we fall apart now, everything we've fought for will be lost." The leaders agreed, though tensions lingered beneath the surface. Old rivalries and political disagreements threatened to resurface, but Lavar refused to let them derail progress. She assigned specific tasks to each region, ensuring everyone contributed equally. Europe focused on developing advanced drones, while Asia worked on perfecting orbital lasers. Africa and South America coordinated guerrilla tactics, preparing for ground assaults. Australia and the Pacific Islands formed a naval blockade, preventing the invaders from approaching from the oceans. As the weeks passed, humanity's efforts began to bear fruit. Cities fortified themselves with reinforced walls, automated turrets, and underground bunkers. Scientists reverse-engineered alien tech, creating hybrid weapons that combined human ingenuity with alien innovation. Soldiers trained relentlessly, adapting to new equipment and strategies. Civilians pitched in wherever they could, volunteering their skills and resources to support the war effort. But amid the progress, challenges arose. Supplies dwindled in some regions, forcing rationing measures. Disagreements flared between military commanders over resource allocation. And then there were the psychological tolls, the trauma of losing loved ones, the constant fear of another attack, and the weight of knowing the invaders could return at any moment. In Chicago, Sergeant Emily Ross struggled to keep her squad motivated. Many of them had lost friends during the initial invasion, and the strain was starting to show. One night, after a particularly grueling training exercise, she gathered her team around a makeshift campfire. "I won't lie to you," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "This isn't going to be easy. We've already been through hell, and there's no guarantee it'll get better. But here's the thing, we're still standing, we're still fighting. And as long as we do that, we have a chance." Her words resonated with the group. Slowly, they began opening up, sharing stories of loss, courage, and resilience. By the end of the night, their spirits had lifted slightly. They weren't just soldiers anymore, they were family, bound together by shared experiences and a common goal. Across the globe, similar moments of connection unfolded. In London, a group of civilians organized a community garden, planting seeds salvaged from destroyed markets. In Sydney, artists painted murals on damaged buildings, turning ruins into symbols of hope. In Cape Town, musicians held concerts in the streets, lifting spirits with songs of defiance and unity. These acts of creativity and compassion became lifelines for many. They reminded people that even in the darkest times, humanity could find beauty and meaning. And perhaps most importantly, they strengthened the bonds between individuals, fostering a sense of solidarity that transcended borders and cultures. Back in Alaska, Ryan received a message from Lavra. Intelligence analysts had intercepted another transmission from deep space. The signal was weak, but its content was clear: The invaders were regrouping. Worse, they were amassing reinforcements, hundreds, possibly thousands of ships. The numbers were staggering, far exceeding what humanity had faced before. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. He knew what this meant. The next invasion wouldn't just be bigger, it would be smarter, deadlier, and more determined. Humanity's window of opportunity was closing rapidly. We need to accelerate Project Eclipse, Ryan told Karen urgently. If we don't build more cannons soon, we're done for. Karen nodded grimly. How much time do we have? Ryan hesitated. Months, maybe less. We'll have to push ourselves to the limit. Word spread quickly among the global leadership. Lavra called an emergency meeting, laying out the grim reality. They're coming back, she said bluntly. And they're bringing everything they've got. If we want to stand a chance, we need to finish what we started, and fast. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. For a moment, doubt crept into the minds of those present. Could humanity really withstand another assault? Had they pushed themselves too far already? Then, unexpectedly, someone spoke up. It was General Luis Alvarez, a veteran leader from South America. His voice was calm but resolute. We've come too far to give up now. Yes, the odds are bad. Yes, it's going to hurt, but we've beaten them once. We can do it again. His words sparked a wave of agreement. One by one, the leaders voiced their determination to fight until the very end. Lavra watched silently, pride swelling in her chest. These were the people who would carry humanity forward, not because they were invincible, but because they refused. To surrender. As the meeting concluded, Lavra turned to Daniel. What do you think? She asked quietly. He hesitated, then smiled faintly. I think we've got a shot. Not because we're stronger or smarter than them, but because we care. About each other, about our planet, about the future. That's something they'll never understand, Lavra nodded. Let's make sure they never forget it. With renewed resolve, humanity pressed on. Factories ran day and night, producing weapons and supplies. Scientists worked around the clock, unlocking secrets hidden within alien tech. Soldiers drilled endlessly, honing their skills for the battles to come. Civilians did their part too, supporting the war effort in countless ways. The months that followed were a race against time. Humanity worked tirelessly, driven by the knowledge that the invaders would return, and soon. The intercepted transmissions painted a grim picture. An armada larger than anyone had imagined was assembling in deep space, preparing to descend upon Earth with overwhelming force. But humanity wasn't waiting idly. Every corner of the planet buzzed with activity as people poured their energy into building defenses, developing new weapons, and strengthening alliances. In Alaska, Dr. Ryan Matthews and his team pushed themselves to the brink of exhaustion. The Eclipse cannon had proven effective once, but one cannon wouldn't be enough to repel an entire fleet. Ryan's goal was clear: build more cannons, faster and stronger than before. The challenge was immense. Each cannon required vast amounts of energy and rare materials, and replicating the technology on a larger scale was no small feat, but Ryan refused to give up. He spent sleepless nights poring over schematics, running simulations, and troubleshooting. Problems as they arose, Karen stayed by his side, keeping him grounded when the pressure threatened to overwhelm him. You're doing everything you can, she reminded him one evening as they reviewed progress reports. That's all anyone can ask for, Ryan nodded, though his eyes betrayed his worry. It's not just about doing our best. It's about winning. If we fail, there won't be a second chance. Across the globe, similar efforts unfolded. In Tokyo, Hiroshi Tanaka's team succeeded in creating a prototype weapon powered by alien energy cores. The device emitted a concentrated beam capable of slicing through steel like paper. Though still experimental, it showed promise. Hiroshi knew they needed to produce more units quickly if they hoped to equip soldiers in time for the next invasion. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Sergeant Emily Ross led her squad through rigorous training exercises. They practiced using hybrid weapons human designs enhanced with alien tech, learning how to adapt to their unpredictable nature. The weapons were powerful, but temperamental, requiring precision and patience to master. Emily drilled her team relentlessly, knowing their survival depended on it. If these guns jam during a fight, she warned them, you'll need to know how to fix them fast. So pay attention. Her squad groaned but obeyed, determined to rise to the challenge. Over time, they grew more confident, their movements sharper and more coordinated. Emily watched with pride as her team transformed from weary survivors into disciplined fighters. Back in New York, Commander Lavra Bennett coordinated global efforts with unwavering focus. She held daily briefings, ensuring every region stayed aligned with the overall strategy. Supplies were distributed evenly, resources were shared without hesitation, and communication lines remained open 24/7. Laura's leadership inspired trust and cooperation among leaders who might otherwise have clashed under different circumstances. Daniel Carter, now a key figure in the defense effort, traveled between cities to assess readiness levels. He visited fortified bunkers, inspected newly constructed turrets, and tested upgraded drones. Everywhere he went, he saw evidence of humanity's resilience. People worked together seamlessly, united by a common purpose. Civilians volunteered. Alongside soldiers, scientists collaborated across borders, and children drew pictures of heroes standing tall against alien ships. But despite the progress, tension lingered beneath the surface. Supplies dwindled in some areas, forcing rationing measures that sparked frustration. Disagreements flared occasionally, particularly over resource allocation. And then there was the psychological toll. The constant fear of another attack weighed heavily on everyone. Yet even in the face of adversity, acts of kindness and solidarity emerged. Neighbors helped each other rebuild homes. Artists created murals celebrating unity. Musicians played songs of hope in crowded squares. One evening, Daniel found himself sitting on a park bench in New York, watching the sunset. A young boy approached him, holding out a toy spaceship made from scrap metal. "For you," the boy said shyly. "To help fight the bad guys," Daniel smiled, touched by the gesture. "Thank you," he replied, taking the makeshift toy. "I'll make sure it gets used wisely." The boy grinned and ran off, leaving Daniel to reflect on the moment. These small acts of courage and generosity reminded him what they were fighting for: not just survival, but a future where such innocence could thrive. As weeks turned into months, intelligence analysts detected signs of movement in deep space. The invaders were coming. Their fleet stretched across the horizon, a colossal wave of ships bristling with weapons and glowing ominously. Panic rippled through Earth's population, but Lava addressed the world with calm determination. "We've faced them before, and we've won," she declared in a televised broadcast. "This time will be no different. Stand your ground. Protect each other. Together we are stronger than anything they can throw at us." Her words resonated deeply, inspiring millions to brace for the coming storm. Cities went dark as lights were extinguished to avoid detection. Anti-aircraft batteries hummed with anticipation, ready to unleash hellfire at a moment's notice. Soldiers took their positions, gripping their weapons tightly. Civilians huddled in shelters, praying for safety. When the invaders arrived, they wasted no time. Massive ships descended from orbit, unleashing devastating barrages that lit up the skies. Explosions rocked cities, sending shockwaves rippling through the streets. But humanity struck back with ferocity. Railguns fired hypersonic projectiles, tearing through enemy hulls. Plasma cannons unleashed torrents of energy, carving paths of destruction through the alien ranks. Drones swarmed like insects, targeting weak points and disabling shields. In Alaska, Ryan activated the first new Eclipse cannon, its core glowing brighter with each passing second. "Fire!" he shouted, his voice trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. A beam of pure energy surged into the atmosphere, piercing through the largest alien ship. The explosion was catastrophic, engulfing the vessel in flames and sending debris tumbling toward Earth. Cheers erupted in the control room, but Ryan didn't celebrate. He immediately began charging the second cannon, knowing the battle was far from over. In Tokyo, Hiroshi's prototype weapon proved its worth. Pilots armed with the devices targeted smaller ships, slicing through their armor with ease. Alien fighters spiraled out of control, crashing into buildings or exploding midair. Hiroshi monitored the situation remotely, his heart pounding with pride and relief. Emily's squad fought fiercely in Chicago, using EMP launchers to disable alien drones and hybrid rifles to pick off ground troops. The invaders adapted quickly, deploying protective barriers around their forces. But Emily's team adjusted too, switching tactics and finding new ways to exploit weaknesses. By the end of the day, the streets were littered with alien wreckage. Testament to their hard-fought victory, the battle raged on. Lavra coordinated counterattacks with precision. She ordered orbital satellites to target specific ships, directed fighter jets to engage enemy craft, and mobilized guerrilla forces to ambush reinforcements. Her leadership kept humanity one step ahead, turning the tide in their favor. Finally, after hours of relentless combat, the invaders began retreating. Their remaining ships ascended into orbit, regrouping for a final assault. Humanity seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated offensive. Eclipse cannons fired simultaneously, obliterating multiple ships in a dazzling display of power. Ground forces advanced, pushing the aliens back until they had no choice but to flee. The skies cleared as the last alien ship disappeared into the void. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the sound of distant cheers. People emerged from shelters, embracing each other in disbelief and relief. Against all odds, humanity had triumphed once again. Lavra stood on the rooftop of the command center, gazing at the horizon. Tears welled in her eyes as she thought about the lives lost, the sacrifices made, and the resilience that had carried them through. Beside her, Daniel watched the stars, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. "They'll come back," Daniel said softly. "Won't they?" Lavra nodded. "Probably. Next time we'll be ready." Below them, the young girl who had given Daniel the drawing appeared, clutching her stuffed animal tightly. She looked up at him and smiled. "We won, didn't we?" Daniel knelt down and ruffled her hair. "Yeah, we did. And we'll keep winning, no matter what comes next." For now there was peace and hope. The scars of war would take years to heal, but humanity had proven something vital. No matter how dire the odds, they would never stop fighting for a better future. As the stars twinkled above, Daniel felt a sense of quiet resolve. Whatever challenges awaited them, humanity would face them together with courage, unity, and an unyielding spirit.